Happy Tuesday. Today is Tuesday, March the 14th, 2023. Today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 81, Genesis 29, 1 through 14, and then 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 4. And I'm going to take a look at 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 4 today because I'm afraid that sometimes people, and by people I specifically mean those of us who call ourselves Christians, think we don't need to worry about the Old Testament. And I think I've talked about before, like how we're generally not very well read when it comes to scripture. And often I find that like even people that are like believers that are better read, also they're not very well read in the Old Testament. Um, and I don't know where this comes from. I mean, I've got ideas, obviously. I mean, maybe it comes out of, bad Christian preaching and teaching. I'll just lay that at the doorstep of my profession. We often don't do a good job of preaching and teaching about the nature of God and what he has been up to, which is incredibly important to let the people of faith know that. And it's incredibly important to share the story of the Old Testament that way. I think somehow people have been taught or not taught carefully enough so that they think that the gospel and the work of Christ is its own thing, right? That it's just standing alone and separate from the work of God. That is the part of that Bible that we call the Old Testament, right? Testament being a witness of faith, right? Um, it's still a witness of a testament of faith, right? So worse yet, I think sometimes people come across as if the Old Testament is all wrong and that God finally got it right in the New Testament. And I think that's, why something like what Paul is saying in Corinthians today is so important. He starts off, I do not want you to be unaware, brothers and sisters, right? That our ancestors were all under the cloud and all passed through the sea and were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and all ate the same spiritual food and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ. That's the point of Paul's writing to the Corinthians. He wants them to understand that the work of Christ on the cross, the redeeming work of Christ, isn't something new and separate from what God has already been doing. It's not this standalone thing. It is a continuation of the work of deliverance that God was doing with Moses and Israel. It's not only parallel to it, right? It's not just that it's like, oh, this story is like this one. It's perfect in its continuation, right? It's the same story ongoing up into your life and mine. Anyway, that's the DBR for today. Get out, enjoy the day. We'll talk to you later. Boop.